Modern day is the actual plot of Assassin's Creed. Yeah. We play as this guy or this girl who we have no clue who they are at first. Lying down on a weird machine visiting ancestors' memories using DNA samples while slowly learning their secrets. When I say the modern day is the actual plot, it means the historical parts, the gameplay and pretty much everything else serve those tiny moments that some players despise so much. But two things. First, it doesn't mean that something like Ezio's story wasn't important. It means we play in the past to uncover secrets in the present and prevent the Templars or Abstergo from getting their hands on forbidden knowledge or dangerous technology. And second, AC used to build the entire game around this concept. For example, in AC1, Altair had a synchronization bar instead of a health bar, meaning he didn't actually get hurt during those fights. So every time you got damaged, you were just getting closer to desyncing from the Animus and the ancestors' actual memories. Therefore, the menu, HUD elements, or Altair being unable to swim was explained through Animus. You know, the modern day device we hopped on to see these memories. So right now, my biggest gripe is with the recent iteration of this super important core element of the series that was introduced in Shadows and continued in Black Flag Resynced. Mainly about how it's no longer an integral part of the story and more like an optional side thing that's there out of obligation. You know, just so people like me stop complaining. Anyway, for those of you who are a bit out of the loop, the modern day currently splits into two parts. First, the rifts, centered around Ego, the Templar AI tasked with brainwashing the user. That is, this holographic avatar, or in simple terms, us, the player. Second, the actual modern day story, which introduces brand new characters and pushes the overarching narrative forward through text entries. And for what it's worth, it's no longer a continuation of Desmond's story or really anything you remember. So let's start with the rifts. They work a little differently from what you might remember in Unity. They just yank you out of the game world into a digital reality, the Animus interface if you will, to engage with its plot. In Shadows, these rifts were marked on your map, so you knew where to look for them. But in Resync, they're basically not shown anywhere and you have to randomly come across them or find their exact location online. And in both games, it's not really clear when we should be expecting to see them, you know, because there's no clear sequential storytelling or a focused modern day narrative connecting the historical story to the present. There's nothing to justify why, how, or even by whom we're experiencing these memories. As a result, the rifts and this whole saving the user from the Templar AI storyline lose their impact. On top of that, it's not even clear what their true end goal is. Is it to defeat Ego within the Animus interface with Mr. Hologram? Are we slowly building toward that moment by moving the story forward one tiny step every new game instead of meaningful development and build up only to finally get there years from now? Because with the OG titles, we had a clear idea of the objectives, had tons of characters and lots of mysteries surrounding them, so if a cliffhanger happened at the end of each game, it really made the wait worth it. But right now, with the rifts at least, it feels like they're not even trying anymore. Like, hear me out. The story they're telling in Resync's rifts is kinda dark. It's about an AI trying to manipulate users by showing them a fake version of history while censoring the real events, all to push them toward Abstergo. We even get a glimpse of this as soon as the game starts, meaning that they tease the modern day right from the get-go, but unfortunately there's a lot wrong with it. I mean, I love the whole psycho AI thing, feeding hallucinations to us, and that there's an eagle that's voiced by Avatar Frontiers of Pandora's male main character that sheds light on the situation in the most obvious way possible, but if you're making me turn into an assassin, at least show me who I am. The concept of putting a holographic silent avatar with no past or future in my shoes where it won't even interact with anything properly is a terrible way to showcase this new modern day era. Such stories usually work better with a written character, unless we're talking about unique cases with incredible writing, such as Half-Life or Portal, which, let's be honest, this game clearly can't match. And by that I mean a silent protagonist only works under very specific circumstances, and this isn't one of them. So now that the game is unable to do that, there needs to be a proper character with a full backstory and actual voice acting. There's a cool storyline happening underneath all the unenthusiastic things happening on my screen that deserves a better portrayal, to be honest. In fact, it seems like Ubisoft is mistaking what modern day should be. is not a tool you use to tease things for future entries in an endless loop. It's supposed to have a proper story with a proper beginning, middle, and end. Cliffhangers are good, and AC used to be the king of that. But leaving things unfinished in a "that's all the time we had for today, folks" kind of way is definitely not it. And the saddest part is that there are hints of good modern day elements in both Resynced and Shadows, but they barely go anywhere. You know, it's really upsetting because the game teases you with such a sexy high stakes promise at the start that excites the hell out of you, but then they just treat it with shame, hide it in a corner as if it's this little thing they're too afraid to show to the world. Like, dude, come on, what am I supposed to feel here in Shadows Rifts? That these rifts will accumulate to a teaser for Black Flag Resynced? Or, I don't know, what am I supposed to feel here in Resynced? That my holographic avatar is now an assassin? Who's our mentor? Where's the Brotherhood? Where are the other members? How was my avatar convinced to become one? Just because the writers thought the assassins are the good guys, therefore the avatar assumed so as well? You know what's worse? In the span of a year, across multiple post-launch updates and 2 full games, we've learned so little from these rifts that they could have just texted that story to us instead of whatever it is the rifts are trying to do. But believe it or not, the rifts don't tell the whole story because the rest of the modern day narrative is actually unlocked in the Animus Hub's vault through the encrypted files or these cubes in particular. And once you find them, you unlock entry points in a menu shoved so deep within the system interface that it feels like the devs are deliberately making you avoid it. I swear to God, I didn't even know they existed in my first 10 to 20 hours of Shadows. I was actually wondering when they were going to show up until I accidentally pressed the button and saw all the entry points I have collected so far. Resynced follows a similar system. You unlock those entry points either by finding cubes or by grinding projects, which requires completing weekly challenges to feel a Battle Pass-esque bar. You know, just to unlock modern day lore. I'm going insane, man! Who thought this was a good idea? I mean, I get it that the investors want to see high player engagement in these games, but dude, come on! This is, on all fronts, a very, very terrible design choice. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even bother unlocking all of them in Shadows. I did open a lot of them, of course, but then I just gave up and went and read them online. I don't want to bother with the pointless weekly grind to find out about Joel Eastman's poor air conditioner in Marrakesh. Of course, the grind thing is less aggressive in Resynced, but instead you have to find these cubes by putting a real effort into exploration. But for some reason they're not shown on the map properly, so you don't really know which ones you've picked already, which in return makes unlocking these entry points kinda messy, pushing me at least to wait to read them until I've collected all of them. And God forbid if you've missed one, because you'd have to check online sources for coordinates to track the one you might have potentially missed. It's this scattered format that really makes unlocking the otherwise cool modern day story unenjoyable. Now, to be fair, the game does explain that these fragments were left behind by the guide, the rogue AI that's trying to help us. But compare that to something like Subject 16's messages in Assassin's Creed 2. The reason those were memorable wasn't just because they were hidden around the world. It was because every discovery felt like you were uncovering a hidden truth about the world of Assassin's Creed. One that directly connected to the Animus and the Assassin versus Templar conflict. There was a mystery, personality, and a reason to care. Here, even when you know who left these fragments, the act of finding them feels less like uncovering an important part of the modern day story and more like collecting optional collectibles. I don't know, honestly. And even if collecting them wasn't a problem, I would still have another issue. The fact that there are literally no cutscenes, no gameplay, or anything remarkable beyond a bunch of scattered notes significantly softens the impact of the story. Not to mention that when you find out for some reason they moved the modern day story about 80 years into the future, skipping the entire events of Valhalla, almost soft rebooting the story and all the characters we knew in a way, makes you even less interested in the entire thing. Because it left me wondering, what's the point? They're going to abandon this at some point or shift it into transmedia instead of continuing it in games once again. Just imagine if Black Flag 2013's main narrative was told through random text that you have to unlock in a scattered way with weird pacing and read them in a hidden menu in a drip-fed style. If it was told like that, then no one would have cared about it anymore. But I digress, and honestly, I don't even want to tell Ubisoft where the modern day should go next. There are a dozen different directions they could take, and personally, I would love to see them continue what Valhalla already set up with the Reader plotline. It feels like there's a fascinating opportunity there, but that's a completely different discussion, because my issue isn't the direction they choose. What frustrates me is that continuity has become almost a foreign concept at Ubisoft. Every few games the direction changes, characters disappear, and we're asked to invest in another reset instead of seeing one story through. So long story short, while the historical adventure in the old AC games was the actual experience, the modern day was the sole reason it existed. Therefore, taking it away like in Mirage or reducing it to optional texts like in recent games, it's what's really wrong with this aspect of the franchise currently. By the way, I'm not saying that the boring first-person crap from the original Black Flag or the cutscene-driven approach of Syndicate and Unity is the way, absolutely not. Come to think of it, I actually remember some people were upset with Layla's modern-day segments feeling boring, that all you have to do is read through her emails. So you see, the problem across most of these games and their modern-day parts was that they were just boring to play. Although this wasn't the only issue all the time. But filling the newer games to the brim with more emails, aka these texts we unlock in the Animus Hub, was never the fix. Players wanted something engaging, not something to sleep to. Look, I'm a lore enthusiast, and I read these things to learn more about the new editions and so on. But holy crap, currently it's like 100% boring to do the modern day parts, even for me who loved these things in the older games. I mean, come on, we already had the perfect blueprint for how to get these parts right. Like in AC Brotherhood and AC3, we had full playable segments with Desmond, with actual parkour and actual gameplay, and the story slowly unfolded while you played through the main narrative. And sometimes to justify the time jumps between certain events in the historical era, this whole modern day interruption, as some would like to call it, worked like a charm. In many instances, it actually helped the pacing and gave those time jumps a purpose. That's why I never truly understood the idea that the modern day was the problem, because when it was done well, it made the entire game better. By the way, and just to be clear, we don't necessarily need Desmond or Layla back for the modern day to work. I'm not even saying give us Basim back. I mean, even though they've moved the story forward by nearly a century for some reason, and made everything the RPG trilogy built towards irrelevant so far, if you're giving us a clean slate, at least give us a brand new character who we can control beyond some incredibly bland gameplay moments. Not to mention, the original modern day of the series felt grounded because it tied conspiracies, history, and contemporary fears into one ongoing narrative. Hell, even Valhalla's version had that sauce. The modern day of that game tied everything together and had such a mind-fucking plot twist that made it so special. Even Syndicate's modern day, despite being very corny, did more with Otso, Berg, Rebecca, and Sean than Shadows and Rising's modern days combined in terms of memorability. I mean, the modern day story is still there, and Ubisoft never stopped writing the modern day, but they just stopped letting us experience it properly. So yeah, the solution is right there, and they don't really need to reinvent anything gameplay wise. Stop shoving the modern day in a hidden menu, ditch the Animus Hub, and give it a real in-game presence again. That's why AC was always so cool in the first place, not because of a piece of gear that gives you 10% more poison damage, but because they connected the story of Adam and Eve to Precursor race and made Desmond the savior of the world in the most batshit crazy plot ever. One that parts of it got resolved in a goddamn comic book. And when I say ditch the Animus Hub, I mean mechanically. I'm talking about the way the modern day is delivered, not necessarily the story itself. Ubisoft can move forward with the current plot, continue the Reader storyline, or go back where we left Basim. My point is that whatever story they choose, it should be experienced through actual gameplay, characters, and cutscenes instead of being buried in menus and text entries. Also, this time, instead of locking up players in a boring environment with nothing to do inside except for walking slowly and reading emails, they can do tons of different things. It could be mission based like in AC3, which is arguably the best approach, or a large hub that slowly opens up as you progress through the historical events with lots of puzzles, combat, and secrets. So yeah, the modern day Assassin's Creed is just terrible now, not story wise, but the way it's been handled. And Ubisoft should properly fix it instead of just finding band-aid solutions. Otherwise, people will keep hating on it, which is completely deserved, to be honest. I mean, I am one of the people who loved most of the older games' modern-day segments, and even I hate the current modern-day iteration. So that's pretty telling. Because Assassin's Creed without the modern day becomes just another historical game, and with the way things are currently, it'll become a very generic one, unfortunately. But at the same time, modern day should not be a snooze fest either. It should become a critical point again. So don't let me catch you saying Assassin's Creed is better off without the modern day. Instead, give me your opinion on how to make it more engaging in the comments.